Okay, so we're going to pick up with question 15. It's where we left off with the other review. And so there's a couple of things to look at. And you could probably even look at this like more from like the trapezoid standpoint. But what you want to focus on here are opposite angles. And in this case, opposite angles are supplementary. Okay, so if I know the opposite angles in this case are supplementary, then I can start off with 2x plus 3 plus 3x plus 7 is equal to 180. Okay, that's going to give you 5x plus 10 is equal to 180. Okay, subtract the 10, 5x equals 170. Okay, and you should be able to solve for x by taking 170 divided by 5. Okay, can you tell me what that comes out to? 34. All right, and we don't want to stop there because it wants to know what are the angle measures of, basically it's what are the angle measures of A, C, D, and B. Okay, so you have to plug in 34 to those three angles that they give you information on. So 2 times 34 is 68. 68 plus 3, 71. So we're going to put 71 here. Okay. Which should mean that if everything works the way that it's supposed to, the angle D should be like 109. So 3 times 34, I don't know that one off the top of my head, plus 7. Does it come out to 109? 3 times 34 plus 7. Does it come out to 109? Okay, so D would be 109. Now here's where, we have some new information. So we're going to do 4 times 34 and subtract 10. $126. Okay, and if you want to find B, you subtract 126 from 180. You should get, what, 54 degrees? Okay. So you should have 71, 54, 126, and 109. Does that make sense? So and what we went through with the other video is that, our first assumption would be that consecutive angles would be supplementary, but in this case they're not. Okay. All right. Okay, let's look at 16. Okay, classify the figure. What would we call this? A pyramid. And the key answer may say square pyramid. I would argue that they don't give you enough information to call it a square pyramid. At best, we would call that a rectangular pyramid because we don't know what those angles are, and we don't know what the lengths of the sides are on that base in order to be specific enough to call it a square. Does that make sense? Okay, but because it does have 4 sides, they don't give me an angle, so I guess if you wanted to be as specific as you could, you'd call it a quadrilateral pyramid. Okay, name the vertices. I think all they're looking for there is how many. How many vertices are there? 5. Okay, 4 for the base, 1 for the lead vertex. Edges, got 4 around the bottom, 4 up each side, so you should have 8. And the base, okay, would be a quadrilateral or a square, I guess. I don't know. What's in the answer key for that? Are they calling it a square? They're just calling it a rectangle. Okay. Okay, let's see, number 17, the diagonals of a rectangle ABCD intersect at point E. If AE is 4 inches long, what is BD? Okay, so the more of these properties that you know on rectangles, the less work you actually have to do. But for our sakes, we're going to draw it. We know that a rectangle looks a bit like this. Okay. got diagonals. We're going to say A, B, C, and D. And I could ask you to tell me all of that, but if we have 34 questions to get through and we're only halfway through right now, we're just not going to get through it, you know, if I've got to wait on people to answer certain things. Okay, so what are we calling this point in the middle? E. So they tell me that AE is what? 4, and they're asking for this line right here. It should be 8. Do you know why? For one, a rectangle is a parallelogram. And in a parallelogram, diagonals do what? Diagonals bisect each other. But a rectangle's diagonals are what? The diagonals of a rectangle. Okay, so the first thing that we would say here is diagonals bisect. Okay, and that's true of a parallelogram. Second thing that you want to know is diagonals are congruent, and that is true of a rectangle. Okay, so if I wanted to make sure I was going to get credit, I would probably include those two facts. It's a parallelogram, therefore diagonals bisect. It's a rectangle, therefore the diagonals are congruent. So if AE is 4, then EC is 4, which means AC is 8, which means BD is 8. Does that make sense? All right. Okay, 18. Okay, figure STUV is a parallelogram. What is the value of X? What did we just talk about, the diagonals of a parallelogram? I wrote it up there. It was number 1. Diagonals do what? Bisect. Okay? Which means that SW is equal to what? WU, which means these two segments here are equal. Okay, so 2x minus 3 is equal to 3/2 x plus 3/4. Now, in order to simplify this, there is a trick so that we don't have to work with fractions. Okay, is that something that we want to look at? All right. So, if I ever want to get rid of all the fractions in a set of equations, I multiply the entire thing by a common denominator. In this case, that common denominator would be 4. Okay, does that make sense? Because all of this on the left-hand side is over 1. Okay, the common denominator is 4. So what's 2x times 4? Okay, 4 times -3. Okay, 4 times 3 is 12. 12 divided by 2 is... Okay, 4 times 3 is 12. 12 divided by 4 is 3. And that gets rid of all the fractions. Okay, it's still equivalent. It's equal to all the same stuff that it was equal to before, only now it's easier to work with. Okay, add 12, subtract 6x. Okay, Caden, finish it off. (2x) equals what? 15. Okay. Divide by 2. X equals 7.5. Okay. And I don't know if they leave that as a fraction or a mixed number if they take the decimal form of that. You get 7 1/2, or what's the other? 15 halves. Okay. Okay. 19. What type of triangle is that, Jewel? It is equilateral. We know that because it is also what? Christian? Vallejo? Don't know what else it is. Let me show you, pay more attention to those red lines. What does that make that triangle? What do we know about the angles of that triangle? Right. What do we call a triangle where all the angles are equal to each other? No, lateral literally means side. So we want a word for angle. Equiangular. Equiangular. And it's because it's equiangular that we know that it's equilateral. So, yes, equilateral is correct, but we kind of want to establish that it's equiangular first. So now that we know that it's equiangular, right, I know it's equilateral. So what do I do with 2s minus 10 and s plus 2? Set them equal to each other. Very good. So 2s minus 10 is equal to s plus 2. Okay, Chaparro, what did you do next? Add 10 to both sides. Okay, so we got 2s equals s plus. Okay, now what? Subtract s. That was what? That was 2s. I don't know why I wrote ss, but okay, so 2s minus s, just s. So s equals what? 12. Okay? And if this question shows up on the test, as easy as that is to do, most kids will still get the question wrong. Not because s doesn't equal 12, but because that's not what they're asking you to finish with. What are they asking you to finish with? CA. Okay? They want to know, what is this length right here? So what do I have to do in order to figure that out? Plug it in where? Either one. And really, s plus 12, or sorry, s plus 2. So 12 plus 2 is 14. You could try it in down at the other one. 2 times 12 is 24. 24 minus 10 is still 14, which means CA is 14. Okay? So be careful with that. Just because you know that it's equiangular, you know therefore it's equilateral, therefore two sides are equal to each other, solve for S, doesn't mean that you're going to get credit, because you have to pay attention to what they're asking you to find. Okay. Question number 20, find the value of x. Express your answer in simplest radical form. Let's see, Garrett, what type of triangle is that? Number 20. It is a right triangle. Does anybody know more specifically what it is? No? What'd you say? 45, 45, 90. That is correct. Now, we don't have to know that to get it right, but it really, really helps. Okay? Because in a 45, 45, 90, my ratios are x to x radical 2. Okay? So what is 5 equal to in my reference triangle? No, the x's are down here. We're going to substitute 5 in for that x, or in for this whole thing right here. 5 is equal to x radical 2. But I want to know what just x is. So how do I figure that out? It's just an equation. How do you solve for x? In any equation, how do you solve for x? You have to isolate it, right? Right? Okay, what's happening here? Is this adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing? between x and the radical 2? What's happening? Is there an addition sign between those two things? It's multiplying. How do I undo that multiplication? Division. So I'm going to divide by radical 2 on either side. Okay? So x is equal to 5 over radical 2, but I'm not allowed to write it that way. What do I have to do in order to fix it? Caden? Multiply by radical 2 like that. And on the bottom, okay? So x equals 5 radical 2 over 2, because radical 2 times radical 2 is 2. So my answer is this. Now, can we solve this without knowing that it's a 45, 45, 90 triangle? Yeah. Can I solve this using the Pythagorean theorem? Yes. Do we need to see how? Yes. Okay. All right. The part you need to be careful about here, so we're saying that x squared plus x squared equals what? 5 squared. But we need to finish this. What is x squared plus x squared? No. There's a 1 and a 1. What's 1 plus 1? So it should be what? We're not multiplying. We're just adding two things. Okay, let's imagine that this red ink pen that I have in my hand, this is equal to x squared. And so is this one. Okay? Now I put them together. What do I have? There we go, 2x squared. Yes, yes. 2x squared equals, can we go ahead and finish this? What's 5 squared? 25. Okay, so now what are we going to do? Divide by 2. Okay, so we got x squared equals 25 over 2. Now don't get in a rush to try to simplify that to like 12 and a half or something, okay? How do I undo the x squared? Square root both sides, okay? Let's see, well, okay, so this is the same thing as this, as the square root of 25 over the square root of 2. Okay? It's the same thing. And if I wanted to simplify that, I'd have to multiply by square root of 2 over square root of 2. What's 25 times 2? 50, so that's giving me square root of 50 over 2. Well, we can simplify square root of 50, and I know my space is kind of all over the place, but 50 is 2 and 25, 5 and 5. So the 5 comes out, and you're left with 5 radical 2, okay, over 2. I don't know if you can say that that's easier or not, but it can be solved either way. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. Give me a second here. No, I'm good. Okay. All right. 21. We have seen this question on our last test. Do we need to cover it another time? Okay. Okay. This is how much? Not 16, 17, right? And we're taking 17 and we're dividing it by radical 2, right? It's giving you something like 12. Okay, it's still a 45, 45, 90. Okay. Okay. All right, here. 22, given that triangle ABC, it says AB is 3, BC is 5, it puts all that in there. It says find the length of the mid segment. Okay. Well, here's the thing, is if we're just looking for xy, the mid segment is always half the length of the side across from it. What's half of 3? 1.5 or 3/2. It's literally all I need to do. Okay? The part that gets people messed up is looking at, okay, well, they told me that AC is 6, so maybe XY is 3, or BC is 5, so maybe it's 5/2. It's always the side that's parallel to it, okay, that it's half of. And it works the opposite way, too. If I knew that XY was 4, I would know that AB was 8. 23 gives you a 30, 60, 90 triangle, asks you to solve for X and Y. X should be really easy to solve for, right? Because it's half the hypotenuse. So if X is half the hypotenuse, what is X? 12. And the side opposite is 60 is the short side times what? Times radical 3. So Y is what? 12 radical 3. Okay? If you don't know by now, you need to study and learn your 30, 60, 90 ratios. Okay, 1, 2, radical 3. Okay, you can look at, if you show me the reference triangle, and that would work on number 20 as well, if you show me the reference triangle, then yeah, that works. That's what I want. More than just saying, oh, it's 12 and 12 radical 3. You know, the reference triangle is going to show me that you know what you're doing, okay? All right. 24. I don't know. The question was if I know if it's cold outside or not. I'm not aware. Here, let me look. Let's take time. Let's take time and find out. It is 58 degrees outside. But it feels like it's 55. Oh, nope. It just updated. It's 60, but it feels like it's 58. Hold on, I gotta listen to something here, hopefully. Go in here. Okay, so 24 is a question that shows up quite a bit. They don't ever change the numbers on it, but showing your work for it is a different matter altogether. So what they're asking you is showing that you've got an equilateral triangle. So it's a yield sign, which is usually upside down, but we're going to look at it like this, okay? And it says that it's equilateral, and what that means is that it's also equiangular, okay? So it goes like that, okay? So it says that it's got a side length of 36 inches, which means all of this is 36 all the way around. Now, the question that we're essentially trying to ask you to answer is to find out how tall the triangle is, or what the height of it is. And that is a line that looks like that, okay? So, I'm trying to give you a good example of the work here, is that if this is 36, and this, well, really, if this is a 60-degree angle, this line right here, that altitude line, it's dividing this upper angle in half. So what is this angle up here? Have to be what? No? 30. Because this was already 60, and that red line cut it in half. So half of 60 is 30. So we have a 30, 60, 90 triangle, which means if this is 36, and that's my hypotenuse, then my short side, my side opposite of my 30 is what? What 36 divided by 2 is? 18, okay? Now the side opposite is 60 is my short side times what? Radical radical 3. So this is 18 radical 3. So I'm going to put 18 radical 3 in my calculator and find out what that decimal answer is. 18 radical 3 is equal to what? 31 point. Radical 3. What was it? 1/7. All right. So the main point of this question is, if I've got a piece of sheet metal that's 36 by 32, well, we know the 36 portion of it will fit. The question is it going to be wide enough, okay, to get my yield sign onto? Well, my yield sign is only 31.17 inches tall, so at 36 by 32, do I have enough sheet metal? The answer is yes, because 31.17 is less than 32. Okay, so yes. Okay, what I'm mainly looking for is that right there. Can we do that? Okay, but you got to show the work. All right, even if you're doing 18 squared plus b squared equals 36 squared, I'll take that. Okay, if you can't remember your 30, 60, 90 ratios, but you can get to this triangle right here, okay, then you can still solve it. And that's one of the big things I want you to learn, period, is that I've had math teachers that wouldn't count it right unless you solved it their way. What I'm trying to teach you is there are multiple avenues to get there. Some of them are shorter the more that you know. But even if you can't remember that, it doesn't mean that you can't get to the right answer. And that's a really good lesson for life. Just because you don't know the shortest way to accomplish something doesn't mean you can't still accomplish it. Okay. 25, that's an estimation thing. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on that. 26. If we have tangent lines that come back to the same external point, what do I know about the relationship between AB and AC? If I have two tangent lines that are drawn back to the same point, what are those segments to each other? They're congruent, okay? So you're going to wind up with 3y plus 4 equals 11y. Okay, you're going to solve for y. You're going to subtract 3y from both sides. You're going to get 4 equals 8y. You're going to divide by 8. You're going to get y equals 1/2. But you're not done because it said find AB. Okay, there's two different ways to do that. If I know that AC is equivalent to AB, can I just plug in 1/2 for y on AC? Sure. What's 11 times 1/2? It'd be 11 halves. Okay, or you can do it on AB and say 3 times 1/2 plus 4. Okay, well, 3 times 1/2 is 3 halves, plus 8 halves is 11 halves. Okay, your answer should be AB equals 11 over 2. So all of that makes sense. What time are you guys out of here? 57? We're going to go ahead and stop there. Your test is on Thursday. What is due tomorrow? What I want to get from you tomorrow is notes for 67, and hopefully I'll have the review, all our videos finished by then, and you guys can study in class, test on Thursday. Does that work for you? Notes for 67, I think all that's already posted.